Would you like to learn how to make your own homemade oat milk as well as oat milk-based desserts?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to show you how amylase allows you to make the best oat milk you can at home and even an oat-based tres leches cake. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners of Modernist Pantry. And here on WTF, every week we talk about unique ingredients and techniques and show you how to do these recipes in your kitchen. So remember, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell, and you'll get notified of our episodes when they come out. This week we're going to be talking all about oat milk. How do you make it at home, and how do you even make oat milk-based desserts? And I think because there's such a rise in interest in oat milk, Scott, can you talk a little bit about the basics of what goes into doing homemade oat milk?
Sure, it's actually very simple. All you need is rolled oats and some water and an ingredient called amylase.
Okay.
So amylase will help break down those starches into sugar so it can kind of naturally sweeten slightly. And it just works in a really great way that you get a nice consistent oat milk that's different than a lot of the other recipes online.
Yeah, I was just thinking, usually you look at recipes for homemade plant-based milks and it's just soak the whatever it is in water overnight and then blend it. How is this producing a better product?
So slightly naturally sweet from the amylase, converting some of the starches into sugar. And then a lot of the oat milk recipes I was researching, just seeing what other people were doing, and it's just oats and milk and you blend, oats and water and you blend it into oat milk, but there's so much starch from the oats that remains that you will have this starchy texture. So people go really high in the percentage, but it just gets so starchy and it's not really pleasant. No one wants to drink starchy water. So the way we found was to break down as much of that starch as we possibly could and then heat it gently to turn that starch into like its own natural thickener, so you get a really consistent, smooth oat milk that is just 3 ingredients.
Yeah, and that sounds really great. I know you have the demo. For people out there, if you're like, I don't know what amylase is and I haven't heard of it, at the end of this episode, we'll link to our episode that's all about amylase. It's a great ingredient. We use it in baking. Obviously, we're using it right now in oat milk. It has a lot of really fun applications, so check that out. But let's get into how do you use amylase to make the oat milk?
Sure. So I just have water here. So I have about 500 grams of water, or about a pint of water, and then I have 25 grams of just rolled oats, something that you can get at the grocery store. It's very simple. All I'm going to do is just mix that in until they kind of sink to the bottom.
Okay.
And then I'm going to add in my amylase, and that part is done. Basically, I can take this and refrigerate it for 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever you'd like, and then you can take it out, blend it up, and then strain out all the oats. And that's it. The best way to do it is through like a 100 micron super bag, because it's so fine that it pulls off any of those like little bits that you could get, any little particles, but that's really it. It's that simple. And then when you're done, you get something that looks like this. Now, as you can see at the bottom, it's all kind of settled to the bottom. And there's a lot of starch that does not convert.
Right.
Because there's a lot of different types of starch within the oats. Some of them soluble, some of them non-soluble. So some of them will not convert unless they're heated. So that's why we do the heating process, which is what we're going to do next.
Cool.
So if I'm going to stir this up just so we can get a shot of it. Right. If I stir this up, you can see it start to get really milky.
And that's already been strained.
That has not been strained.
Got
nope,
it.
that has not been strained. But everything just settles to the bottom.
Right.
The amylase does its work on whatever it can. So here I have some, I just stirred this up before we started shooting. This has been strained after it's been blended as well. That one has not been blended. So it's holding on to its color really nicely. But when I pour it in, this is still about a 5% oats. You can see a little bit of residual starch at the bottom. That's what we need to heat up.
Okay, and what does heating up the residual starch do for the oat milk?
It's just hydrating the starch a little bit, and it gives it a natural thickness. So as I can move this one back, we can kind of go down the line. This is 5% This is 7%, 10%, 20%, and 30%.
Okay.
And obviously, the higher the percentage of oats, the thicker it's going to get. So 5%
Okay.
is where your kind of drinking oat milk is.
Yep.
Around 7 is what I like to do for like an evaporated oat
Okay.
milk.
You can kind of see this one is a lot creamier.
Yep.
And this, the 10% is even creamier.
Yep, just a
This
little
is
bit.
more like a condensed milk consistency right
Yeah.
here. Let's
And
look
then
at 20.
20,
Oh,
20 is
this
definitely
is like-
thicker.
Yeah.
And then 30 is something great if you wanted to do it. We were talking if you wanted to make like a plant-based anglaise, or if you wanted to
Ooh.
make a plant-based yogurt, you could use that consistency,
Okay.
right? And it's all the same ingredients, just amylase. You know, it's 1% to the total weight of the recipe that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's 30% oats and water. And it's
That's awesome.
just that, and then you can make different, you can go all the way up to 50%, right? And
Okay.
it'd be really, really thick.
And you're getting like a pudding.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's this one at the end here?
That's actually, if you want to pull that, you get a nice stringiness
Ooh.
out of it. That's sweetened
Whoa.
condensed oat milk that we made. So we did a
Nice.
50-50 sugar to water ratio, and then we added 5% oats so that you get the nice oat flavor, but you get a lot of the sweetness, and then we also heated that so you get that nice kind of almost caramel-like, you know, texture out of it, and we use that in our recipe that we made today.
Cool. If you want to learn how to make that, link will be in the description below.
Great. So
All
this
right.
is done now, and you can kind of see there's little bits in here that I can just break up and fully hydrate, but that's easy. If you wanted to try some, Janie, though, it's right
Okay.
there.
So this
Now-
is the 5%.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
5%. We did add a little bit of sugar and add a little bit of vanilla to it. If you don't want that extra added sugar, if you don't
I
want
like
that
that.
extra added vanilla, you can just keep it like this.
Okay.
So this is the base recipe. You can add the sugar and vanilla. They'll be optional in the recipe.
Yeah, this is really good. I think this is actually way better than, and I drink oat milk. I put it in my coffee every
I love
morning.
it. I
Yeah,
love oat milk.
it's really, this is, I think, really nice. It's super easy, as you can see.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it's better than what you're getting in the stores.
It absolutely is, and I think we're going to come back and we're going to show you a recipe that we created with a couple of these oat milks, just so you can see how versatile it is to make dairy-free recipes.
Cool. And before we go to the recipes, I just want to ask one clarifying question, which
Sure.
is that you have mentioned the oat milk has a natural thickness, and and in a lot of recipes, and especially when people go to stores, they're seeing different types of gums being added to the plant-based milks
Yep.
to stabilize them in order to get this consistency. Why are we not adding any gums to this recipe?
So we're not adding gums for
good.
one reason,
Keep drinking
is wanted to make it as simple as possible, right? You can make it at home. It does have a natural thickener within it, so that's one thing. You will find that it separates just slightly over a few days,
Okay.
but if you mix it up, it's totally fine. It looks perfect.
Okay.
So it works great like that. A lot of those recipes use those gums so you don't see any separation, but separation is natural. So if you wanted to add a gum, you absolutely could, but I think this recipe stands on its own.
Okay. Well, awesome.
So let's get cleaned up here, and then we're going to come back with a great tres leche recipe using oat milk.
Sounds good.
All right, so here we have our setup for our tres leches cake using all oat milks.
Okay.
And what we did here is we made our traditional kind of tres leches cake, but we took out the milk, we added oat milk in the recipe itself. It actually made it really beautifully brown on the outside, and then we took a 5%, 7%, and our sweetened condensed oat milk. So
Ooh.
we blend them together in equal parts. So it's pretty simple, just like a traditional, just poke holes in the cake. The original poke cake is the tres leche.
Okay. Did you find when you substituted in the oat milk for the dairy milk, did it make any difference in the cake at all?
In the
Besides
cake,
browning?
no, just
Okay.
a little bit extra brown than a
Cool.
dairy milk did. And then just pour some over. This might take 2 or 3 applications to soak up all the milk, but
You can find this recipe up on the blog. It's going to be in the links in the description below.
once it fills up, yeah, this pan held it really well. So great. So yeah, you can just let it sit like this. And if you wanted to add a little bit more, we add a little bit of the sweetened condensed milk right over the top at the end. It almost makes like a glaze on top. So,
Ooh.
so it did that for this one that you have here. And if you wanted to try it, Janie, you
I
can.
do. And while I'm trying it, can you talk a little bit more about this sweetened condensed milk? I'm really fascinated by kind of this texture that we're getting here. How did you achieve that?
So it's really simple. It's mainly the starch from the oats that causes this texture. It's just a simple syrup. Then we blend in 5% of oats. We didn't use any amylase for this one because we mixed it in immediately, and you're not going to get any extra sugar out of it, so we just blended it and went right with it here. But yeah, we were able to make a really great sweetened condensed oat milk out of this. And if you already have some oat milk, you can just take that oat milk that you have and sugar, and then you can do like a 50-50 combination. So if you've made your own oat milk and you want to just convert it right into it, you can just do 50-50, you know, the oat milk and 50% sugar. Heat it right up, and it's going to make that texture.
Ooh, and so this is delicious. And I'm lactose intolerant, but I love eating things with dairy in them. So this, you really can't tell that it's not regular dairy. And what I also love is, I don't know if the camera can see it, but it almost feels like there's a little glaze on the top of the cake here. Is that just a sweetened condensed milk?
That's the sweetened condensed milk. So the last one I do is just a little bit more of the oat milk with the sweetened condensed, so it's a little bit more pourable, and you just sit it right over the top, and it makes its own. It's almost like a frosting on top, and it's delicious.
It is delicious, and it's very light, very refreshing. So give this recipe a go. And you know what? If you want to try it, you can win this liter of amylase as part of this week's giveaway by leaving in the comments below a recipe that you think that you would really like to substitute in oat milk for, where traditional dairy milk is used. So I think that'll be a really fun thing to try in basically any recipe. And if you are more curious about like amylase and about other plant-based recipes, we'll link to a few of them here as well, so you can catch those. So until next week, from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin.